Hi, welcome to another episode of the Out of Office Club. Thank you again for listening. In case you're watching this on YouTube and you're thinking, oh, that's a different look. Agreed. I don't have many days when I travel when I feel fancy, And today was just one of those days where I was like, I'm going to try something new. The red lipstick. Let me know if you think it works or not. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. I might regret this when I start editing this video. But for now, this is it for today. Also because I kind of had a day off today, somewhat, and a very busy weekend. And one thing that you'll notice, especially when you start traveling full time, it's just there's not many days where you get to really feel pretty. At least I don't. I have very limited clothes with me. Sometimes when I travel, things are just really basic. I don't go on that many dates. I don't go places that are very fancy, really. So also, if you're thinking, hey, I've seen those outfits before, or if you're on my social media and you think, oh, she wears a lot of the same things. I know, I do. I have 3 outfits, It's not, apart from the fact that I'm not very fashionable. But yeah, today I felt like putting on some lipstick. Feel free to judge me in the comments. I don't really care. But today I did want to talk about something that I think is very relevant to a lot of people, and something that I also tell a lot of people about when they want to start working for themselves or being a digital nomad. Because, I'm the first one to say that I love being a digital nomad and that I think everyone should do this and that it is really, really fun. But I'll also be the first to tell you what the downsides are and what is not fun about this lifestyle. Because, of course, every lifestyle has good and bad parts. And when we talk about the digital nomad lifestyle, there's, of course, multiple ways to do it. All it means is that you work in some way online and that you travel at the same time, that you are traveling around while working remote. That is all that a digital nomad is. And people do it in all sorts of ways. I even know people that I guess technically wouldn't be a digital nomad, but they just kind of move from place to place and then work just the odd jobs at those places to afford their travels. Of course, an actual digital nomad would be working online. And you can do that by either working for yourself or working for a company, but then working remote for them. And something that I want to talk about today is the realities of being your own boss. Because as fun as it sounds, it is also exhausting. I have been doing this now for 5 years. I started my own company, but I started working as a freelancer 5 years ago now. I've always done a lot of projects for myself. And I can tell you, it's not always great. It sounds really nice. And it is occasionally, but it's also quite stressful. So yeah, that's what I want to get into today. The realities of being your own boss and what that actually means, so that you can prepare yourself well. Because I want to prevent anyone from going into this lifestyle blindly or just thinking that, oh, I'm just going to do that. It sounds so fun, looks so easy. That's what I'm going to do, without knowing what it entails. Because I think that's what I did. I just kind of started and rolled into this. And there's a lot of things I struggled with, especially the first years, but even now still. And I'm just learning as I go. But I guess that's the whole purpose of this podcast, of all the videos, of my social media content. It's being very honest and upfront about what this lifestyle is like, the good and the bad parts. So, yeah. For anyone wondering, I am still in Matera, Italy. It's actually going to be my last couple of days here before I move further south for a work exchange, which I'm very excited for. And yeah, I've now spent 2-3 weeks here. It's enough. I'm ready to go to the next place. This weekend was really nice. I didn't feel so great, but we went to Pompeii to Pompeii, which was really, really fun. And then to Naples. So just like a weekend exploring from Matera, which is really good. And this week, just back to work and then to the next place. I'm going to Bari for a couple days before then going further south to the middle of nowhere, somewhere to help out, somewhere for a work exchange. But again, that's not what this episode is about, but I wanted to give a little bit of, personal update about where I am, what I'm doing. I will be in the south of Italy until half December, probably, which I think is amazing because the weather here is still somewhat good, and in the north of Europe, it's gross. So it's going to be nice to go back to the Netherlands, but cold, very cold, rainy. So I'm happy to be here. Till then, so again, being your own boss, what does it mean? What does it look like? Especially combined with traveling. I think that adds a different layer of complexity to it. But also, in case you're wondering about this podcast, I can't say I prepare my podcasts very well. I am quite an impulsive person. I don't particularly like planning, which you can see in most of my travels. I just go and then I'll see, but I do the same for my podcast. I just really want to sit down and just talk. So if you're listening to any of this, especially on YouTube, and you feel like it's a bit messy, it is. I know. It's how I like to create this content. If you have any tips, feedback, feel free, but that's just my way of talking, and I want it to be like talking with a friend, just me sitting down telling you my thoughts, my tips. And if you have any comments on that, any feedback, any questions, then you're always welcome to send them to me, either wherever it is that you're listening or watching this, or on my Instagram. It's always fun to know what you guys think of my stories, my insights, because I also get a lot of people who feel differently or who look at it from a different view or perspective, which is really interesting to me. So in case you're like, damn, this is messy, that's just my head, okay? My brain, it doesn't always work well. I go in loops quite a lot. I misspeak often. My first language is in English. I'm trying my best. It'd be nice. I'm also just having fun here. So all of that said, very long intro. Let's get into it. Again, I started working for myself 5 years ago, got into it very quickly, kind of just started, like I do with everything. Like I just said, quite impulsive. I just figured I'm just going to do it. I'm still in the process of graduating. My costs are very low. I might as well just start, and then I can always get a job. That was my mindset. That's how I got into this. And that is something I always want to explain first, because a lot of people say, oh, but you work for yourself, that's so like brave, and how did you do that? And I want to be very clear that for me, the process of starting working for myself was easy. I did not come from a 9-to-5. I never had that stability. I didn't have any costs. I didn't have a mortgage. I lived with my ex at the time for free. He very kindly allowed me to stay there for free. My only costs were my insurance and groceries. So the risk for me was very, very low. And that's also how I was able to start. So keep that in mind with anything that you hear always. Don't compare yourself too much if you think, oh, I want to start my own thing, but I find it too risky, I find it too difficult, or it's not making me enough money. I think for the first year I made, if I was lucky, 1,500 euros a month. And at the beginning, the first couple months, I made 300, 500. Like I didn't make enough money to actually live off of in North Europe, where I was living at the time. So don't compare yourself too much to this. This for me also was quite a process. It was something that took a while, and something I was able to do because I started young. I was 21. I started with a safety net, which was at the moment my ex, but of course I also could rely on my parents, and with limited costs. So just to give you the right reference of how I started and how I think it's probably the best way to start, but also the easiest way. if you come from a 9 to 5 and you want to switch, it's going to be a lot harder because you will have to either have a lot in savings, or you need to do it next to your 9 to 5, which of course is very tough and exhausting. But anything is possible. And this podcast episode is not about how to do that. I think I recorded a different podcast for that a couple weeks ago about how to actually start as a digital nomad. And that goes in a bit more about what to do, how to find your first clients, how to build your portfolio, and the whole process I went to for the first year that I really had to learn. This is more about what it then actually means when you do, because it is not, like I said, all fun. By the time I was my own boss, I really struggled with balance, motivation, and guilt. I think those were the main 3 things I found very, very tough. There was either a day where I would work 14 hours or it was a day where I did nothing. So the balance was very off. Motivation was tough. There were days, again, where I did a lot and days where I just could barely get out of bed. And I found it very hard to work, do anything. And guilt. Even if I did work a lot, I felt like there was always more I could do. I could have been more productive. I could have focused more on different work. There was always this thought that I could have done more or better. And I think that is the reality of it. Because of course, the expectation many people have is that, one, I don't work a lot. I have noticed that, which I think is quite fun, that I don't work a lot, that I, of course, can work from anywhere and that I have all this freedom. And that also means that I have a lot of time. Now, I can understand why people might feel that way, and I know how it can look. And they're not always wrong. They're not always wrong. But let me say that all of that freedom that I do have to work from wherever I want, I also get to work whenever I want, also comes with, again, that guilt and pressure. Because being your own boss means that you have to be self-motivated. No one's going to tell me when to do something. Sure, clients might chase after me or they get angry, but in general, I set my own deadlines. I decide when something is done, when it's not, and it is really tough. I definitely don't always have that inner motivation to work. I can be quite, what's the word again? When you push everything to the last minute. My English is not working. I'll get to it in a second. You know what I mean. I'll just leave everything to the last minute and then it just kind of bundles up and then suddenly have a lot to do and it's not good. And I hate it. I'm getting better at that. But that's something I still find really difficult. The inner motivation. And a way to do this is just to schedule your days better, to have routines that you set for yourself, to also understand yourself well. How do you work well? What do you need? I kind of know that my morning dictates how the rest of my day goes. So the better my morning routine, the better the rest of my day. If I set an alarm, I get up earlier, then the rest of the day I generally am more productive. Starting with certain tasks that give me motivation, help. Doing my more creative work in the afternoon or evening works well for me as well, when I have no distractions. Those are the things that you need to know about yourself. How can I actually be productive? What does that mean for me and what do I need? Then, especially when I just started, I had this idea that I had to work and be productive Monday to Friday, or at least 5 days a week for 8 hours. So if I didn't work from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, I had failed. Which of course was just a completely wrong mindset, and it made me have a lot of guilt because I always felt like I wasn't working enough or I wasn't productive enough. And it took me a while to realize that that's basically unattainable, is bullshit. When I spoke to other self-employed people, but also people that work in offices, I don't think anyone actually works 40 hours a week. Like super focused, incredibly productive 40 hours a week is a lot. Of course, I've had those weeks, but that's because I had a lot of work or a lot of motivation, and they happen, but they're not, I don't think that's something to strive for or think that that is sustainable. Because I've personally never worked in an office, so I find it very hard to compare. But for what I've heard, you go to your office, you talk to your coworkers, you have coffees, you walk around, you have lunch for an hour. Like it's, I think in some companies they did all these tests and they did a 4-day work week and actually realized people were more productive than a 5-day work week, because there's only a certain amount of time you can actually be productive, and at some point that just runs out. And working more days does not necessarily equal more or better outcome. And I think I was at my dad's. He was renting an office to work from. He's got his own company as well. And I joined him, went to his office. We just sat there. He was working, I was working. And then we went for lunch. And at some point he's like, oh, look at this. And he was on his laptop playing a game, chilling. And he's like, oh, no, I've got some emails and I have to fix this and then we can go. So then at 3 p.m. we left. And I just asked him, like, what does usually your day look like? Because he had his own company for years. I think now 15, 20, I don't know. I don't even know. A while. And he said, well, it kind of just depends on the work, but sometimes it's 4 hours, sometimes it's 10. It kind of depends on the work, on motivation, on the day. And that made me realize that sticking to this super strict schedule where I felt like I had to work every day from 9 to 5 was just unrealistic. If you do have coworkers, if you do go to an office, you'll be distracted a lot more than just me in my room behind my laptop. And it's really hard to do that for 8 hours a day, to just be that productive. So I then kind of let go of that, and I realized, okay, of course I have to work and I have to put in the effort and the hours, but keeping myself to this super strict routine that I kind of expected myself to follow, that I thought I should follow, probably isn't just the right way. And it's going to actually leave me feeling more guilty, more burned out, more demotivated, because I always felt like I was failing. And that just wasn't helping. So don't put those unrealistic expectations on yourself on how much you have to work to be successful. Of course, like with anything, there is a bit of a double, there's a balance to it, right? In general, the more I put into my work, the more I get out of it. And I can see that very clearly in how much money I make. Not always. And some months are just really good for no reason or really bad for no reason. But in general, the more work I put in, the more I get out of it. And I think that goes for everything. But it is important to have the right expectations and the right mindset to this, to not work yourself into the ground or keep all this guilt. I'm still working on that, by the way. It's an ongoing process, but that is, or it can be, difficult because again, you'll feel like you can always be doing more, and there's also always something to do. So that's kind of the weird thing, which I've noticed I do now as well, which I can't say I'm happy about, but I've had days where someone was like, oh, but then you don't have any plans, or you're alone, or what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'm going to work. Like there's always work I can do. Like I don't have to be bored, which is kind of sad maybe, but there's always work to do. And that's what's going to happen when you start working for yourself. You're very quickly going to realize there's always work to do, even if it's not client work. I could be working on my own marketing, my own sales. I need to do administration. I need to do my own accounting, or at least I've got an accountant for that. Highly recommend. But administration. I can improve my own website. I can work on my portfolio again. I can send out more applications. I can, even if it's not client work, there's something I can do for my own business, and there will always be something to do. And to continue on that also means it is very hard to actually take a day off. I did have a day where I did absolutely nothing recently. And I kind of planned that and I still felt guilty. So, especially on my own, if I'm with friends or with someone and they're not doing anything, I feel better not doing something. I don't know if that makes sense. But if I'm on my own, I feel like I should use this time to work. I think that's even something I said in a previous podcast, to try and kind of balance work and travel. That if you have the opportunity, it's good to work, because then when you do want to do something, you'll have the time, because you've done your work, so now you can go and enjoy it. Which I still think is true, but you also need days to recover and do nothing. And even though there always is something to do, it is important to take time off. My therapist asked me a couple of weeks ago, she was like, when is the last time you had a full day off? And I couldn't really remember. And then even if I did have a day where I didn't work, I felt so guilty about it that I didn't actually relax. So don't do what I do and try to actually schedule a day off, like a day where you just do nothing. You don't worry about anything. You don't do any work. You don't check your emails. You just relax and do nothing. Again, I'm telling you this while also still trying to follow my own advice. I'm not perfect in any of this, but that is something that I would recommend you to do. Try and take some day off, at least one a month, where you just do nothing. I had one last week. It was good, and because I kind of planned it, because I accepted it, I didn't feel guilty, and I could actually relax, and yeah, that feels good. So again, what have I said so far? The self-motivation, that is important. You need to be self-motivated, and if you don't think you can do it, try it first. Do a project, see if you can motivate yourself to work on that every day. I mean, it's a bit like wanting to learn a language, right? That's self-motivating, or has to be self-motivated. No one tells you to do it. You have a bit of a goal maybe, but in the end, you're gonna have to do it yourself. The same goes for being your own boss. Then the pressure of having to be productive all the time, and there always being more work. Those are tough things about being your own boss. Then something else, I would say, when you have your normal 9 to 5, or you're building a career, you work for a company, there's a sense of accomplishment that you get from either praise from coworkers, from clients, or because you get promoted. And when you work for yourself, you just don't have that. There's been certain things that I accomplished that I never actually celebrated. They just kind of happen. And then later I think back and go, oh, actually, I should be quite proud that I achieved that, or that I did that. But in that moment, they just don't mean as much, or they do mean something, but you don't register it as much because there's no one there to celebrate things with you. And it can be easy to forget how much you have done and accomplished and learned if there's no one to see it. So that part, I think, can be tough. Plus the loneliness that can come with it. Being self-employed is great, but I don't have coworkers. The most connection I have is with certain clients that I get along with. But even then, it's never too friendly. It's still, we get on, we chat for a bit, and then we go back to business. And they're not my friend, and I know that. I also sometimes don't speak to them for months if they don't need my work. So yeah, you don't really have coworkers to share anything with. It can be a bit lonely. In the end, I just sit here and work all day by myself, which again, I personally don't mind, but I have gotten that question multiple times on social media and from people around me who are like, isn't it super boring and lonely? I'm having a great time. Okay, I put on music. I've got some snacks. I have usually 2 screens, or one if I'm traveling. Now I'm lucky. I can sometimes use 2. I put on music. I have a great time working by myself. Like, I personally really don't mind, but I know people that kind of crave that social connection. They actually quite like being in an office. So think about that too. Would it work for me to work by myself all day, to not work? You don't really work yourself up any corporate ladder. Let's say I don't work myself towards a promotion. I just have my own personal goals and business goals that I want to achieve. But again, even if I do reach them, there's no one celebrating those with me unless I actively go to friends or family and say, hey, I've achieved this goal. But most of it is just more private, I think. And I don't mind that. I quite like building and working alone in private. But yeah, that is maybe a little bit different than if you would have your 9 to 5. Again, the good parts are, of course, that I do get to set my own schedule, which means if there's something happening on a random Tuesday and I really want to go to that event or that place, or it's a great day and the rest of the day it's raining, I can do that, which I personally love. And it's this sense of freedom and flexibility that I would find very, very hard to give up. So I know I've spoken about those negatives or the things that make it challenging to be your own boss. But in return for that, I get so much freedom and flexibility that I don't know how I could ever give that up. If I don't want to work this afternoon, I don't have to. If I want to take a break tomorrow morning or spend a bit longer at breakfast with a friend, I can do that. It, of course, on the other hand, also means I work many evenings. I work most weekends. I take my laptop basically with me anywhere in case a client calls, or I get inspiration, or I have nothing to do, or there's something I forgot, or my laptop is basically on me almost all the time, or I'm not far from it, which, I don't know, I guess those are the boundaries that kind of, they mix, because it's your own business. It's not someone else telling you, you have to work on this so that you can go and make someone else money. If I don't do it, I don't get any money. So I don't mind it also that I have to work evenings, weekends. I don't mind, because if I want to take the Wednesday off, I generally can, as an example. And that's the level of freedom that I really, really enjoy doing this. And I know in this right now, I haven't really spoken about what it means financially to be your own boss. I think that's a separate video because that is a different topic. But if we're just looking at work and what it means and how it changes, then I think these are the main things. It can be tough to keep that motivation going as well. There have been weeks where I've been super productive, super on top of things, very just inspired, in like a really nice flow. And then there's days or weeks where I've not. Again, I think also as a woman that might, with your whole period in your cycle, I don't know too much about it, but I have been reading more into it. And I also know that just changes how I feel throughout the month. And sometimes I feel worse, sometimes I feel better. But that's going to happen for anyone. Whenever you go and work for yourself and you're self-motivated, there will be periods where you'll have really, really good days and you can work a lot and do a lot, followed by some days where you will not. And then it's all about, okay, how do I find that balance? How do I make it a bit more predictable every day and make it work for me? Some people love to work at night. Some people love to work in the mornings. You have to figure that out. And staying motivated is difficult, not just day to day, but I mean in general. Being your own boss is frustrating. Working with clients can be very, very tough. There's a lot of things that you have to do when you are your own boss. Think about, it's not just client work, right? Like what I said before, it's not just client work, it's also doing your own marketing, your own sales, your own admin, maybe your own accounting if you don't have an accountant or want one. Maintaining your own website, trying to, you want to build a network around you of people, other freelancers that you could ask for help in case you don't know something or you have too much work, that also they can give you some work. So then it's the networking as well. You're everyone, you know. In a company, they have all these different people who do all these different tasks. And when you're self-employed, you have your own company, especially at the beginning, you're all of those people all the time. I cannot spend all my time on client work because also a lot of my time goes to my own work and my own processes and updating my own systems and improving them and doing my own marketing. I mean, even just like recording this podcast, to me, this is work and I love it, but I'm not doing client work. This is something I'm doing to hopefully, you know, increase my reach and build something of my own personal brand as well. So a lot of your time will also go to running your business and not just the fun parts of working for clients or traveling. So with all of that being said, I think it is good to be very honest with yourself. Can I be my own boss? Do I want to be my own boss? How would I need to structure my days or weeks to make it work for me? Because I do know some people who I don't think should be their own boss. And that is not to say anything bad about them. It's just I don't think that they could do it or that they even would enjoy it. And I don't always enjoy it. Okay? For anyone who has started and is now doubting it, or maybe started years ago and is now feeling frustrated and tired, I have met so many business owners who are tired, demotivated, ready to give up. And that's because this is not easy. I gave myself a lot of shit before for not succeeding as fast or in the way that I thought I had to. And seeing so many people around me also struggle with being self-employed or building a business, building an agency, whatever it is, makes me realize that this also just is really, really hard. Some people are absolutely born for this, but even then, I feel like they probably also struggle. You know, anyone you see online where you think, oh, they've got everything, their life just figured out, they have everything, you know, in order. They'll have their bad days too, I think. And seeing other people around me struggle with being a business owner, or even quitting or giving up or selling their business, or, you know, just quitting it altogether. It made me just realize how hard this also is, and that I shouldn't be so hard on myself for not accomplishing certain things as quickly or in a way that I thought I would. Because this isn't easy. I think the upstairs neighbors are fighting. But anyway, yeah, it is tough. That's all I'm saying. Is it worth it? 100%. If what you really value is freedom and flexibility. Because if those are not the things that you crave, I would not know why you would want to start your own business, if I'm honest. I know for some people that's not the goal and they just want to have that accomplishment and they want to build something on their own, and I think that's amazing. But this comes with so much risk and so much work that if your reason to do it is not solid and it's not very strong, it's going to be very hard to do this. So yeah. Would I do it again? 100%. I still love doing it. Oh yeah, and actually, I've also spoken to people who would do their own thing for a while, who would have their own business or be a freelancer, and then realize that they would get quite tired or they're not finding their way in it. And then they don't quit, but they more like take a break. So they would go back to a job, you know, to fixed income, fixed work schedule for months, year, until they find this motivation again, until they feel a bit more recharged, and then they quit and they kind of rebuild something again. And I've seen so many people start over in that sense. You know, they just get a job, do that for a bit, recharge, and then they quit and start their own thing. Or before they quit, I've already started their own thing. And I think if I just look at the past 10 business owners I've seen, I think they've changed what they do at least 2 or 3 times. Either their business or their job or their direction, or they started something, it failed. They had a job, they started again, it failed, they started again, and that works. So yeah, for anyone who wants to be their own boss, keep these things that I've spoken about in this podcast in mind. Just think for yourself, do I really want this and why? Am I prepared to do that hard work and have that uncertainty? Again, you can start small. Don't expect to earn thousands of euros within months. It's just unlikely. Start small, build a good plan, do your research, be nice to yourself, give yourself time to learn and grow and learn what it's like to be your own business, because I do also think it's amazing. Okay, the level of, again, freedom, flexibility, but also, how do you call that? You know, when you can just be proud of what you've built. It's not, you didn't build it for someone else or because someone else told you. You build it for yourself in your way. And that is also something you can get a lot of pride out of, which is really nice to know that you can do that you have the strength and the work ethic to do it. So again, just think, can I do it? Do I want to do it? And why? And then build it slowly. Don't compare yourself to anything that you see online. Don't immediately invest in a bunch of coaches. I can tell you it's not worth it. I've never gotten out of that what I wanted. Try it for yourself first. Do a bit of research. Take some online classes. Try it. And then if you can't figure it out, reach out to people who have done it, see what they say and how to do it. Have conversations with people. Take inspiration from that before you go and invest thousands into courses. Of course, get my course, but that's only €6. No, I'm kidding. It's just, I see so many courses about building businesses mainly. And not to say they're all bad, but I have seen many bad ones. So don't think that that's what you need to build a business. It doesn't have to be that complicated or that expensive. I do talk about that a little bit in my course, but my course is much more just about digital nomad life and what this whole lifestyle means and how to make it work. And it's not at all about how to build a business or how to make money online necessarily. It's about everything around it as well. So yeah, if you're interested, have a look on my website. Everything's there, which I know is very contradictory to what I just said, but I just feel like I think it's mainly coaching that I don't like. I've taken other online courses that I liked, but coaching in general, especially for business, is so expensive, and I haven't seen it actually pay off. Not for myself, but also not for many other people. But yeah, that is, I guess, where I want to end this week's podcast. Let me know if you have any questions or thoughts about being your own boss, if there's anything that you're worried about that maybe you've noticed if you already work for yourself, something I maybe forgot to mention. And then my phone died right at the end of the video. Luckily it got saved, but yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope to see you again next week. I hope you have a great week and talk soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.